ever wondered why God allows Satan to remain on the earth? I mean, come on, think about it. All powerful God, Jesus comes, great victory. He leaves the devil here. I don't want him left here. Hello? How many of you know it's even funnier, weirder? God drives out Adam and Eve out of the garden because of their sin. Yet God allows Satan, our enemy, to stay. You think about it, that's kind of weird that God leaves the devil. I know he's going to be judged in 1,000 years, and yeah, it's given a lot of pontificating, bloviating preachers ways to speculate on things they have no knowledge of, but their hoping comes true. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff. Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. 1 John 3:8, the reason the Son of God was made manifest or visible was to undo, destroy, loosen, and dissolve the works of the devil that he has done. How many here? The works the devil has done. Now, but he didn't destroy him. He came to destroy the works, but he left the devil. So I asked the Lord about this. In the ponderings and wanderings of a moment, I sat down and said, Lord, why'd you leave him here? I listened for a few minutes, and I heard the Father say, you need enemies. And I thought, oh, Lord, you mean I need enemies? I've been trying to get rid of them. Churchill said it this way. You have enemies, he said as a question. Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life. Benjamin Franklin said it this way. Love your enemies, and they shall tell you all your faults. You can discover what your enemies fear most by observing the means he uses to frighten you. If you don't have an enemy, you don't have character. You're going to change your prayer life, because when you start praying against your enemy, you're fighting a brick wall. Hello? You need to know what to pray when the enemy comes. James says, when the enemy comes, you resist the devil and he flees. We all know that. Doesn't say you defeated him. It just says you resist him. So you can resist. You can do all kinds. You can bind. You can do all those things. You can do a lot of things against the enemies that come in your life. And look. Some enemies, I was going to say might be sitting beside you. Some enemies, they're not going to come dressed in a red suit with a pitchfork. Some enemies look just like you. It's amazing. Judges chapter 3. Now these are the nations which the Lord left to prove Israel by them. Now look what it says in the NIV. These are the nations the Lord left to test all those Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. Go on. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not, don't turn it, who had not had previous battle experience. That's heavy. God left them to teach another generation how to war. Amen. I hear people saying things that don't make any biblical sense. They're prophesying, we're going to destroy the devil, he's not going to be able to work, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, you might mess his plan up for a day, but he's a spirit. He don't disappear. Hello? And you got to understand the other devils that you have to deal with and enemies you have to deal with. Remember, you live with them. It's you. And so we need to understand, okay, let's come to the conclusion we ain't getting rid of them. I don't want to live with them. I don't want to tolerate them. I don't want to just welcome them. So what I got to do? Well, that's what God said here. I'm going to teach you warfare to all the descendants of Israel who had not previously had previous battle experience. God said, I'm going to teach you how to fight. I'm going to teach you how to do warfare in the realm of the Spirit. Parents, this is why you're not going to defeat the enemy in those areas around your children. You may buffet them, you may resist them, you might push them back for a minute, but they're going to keep coming every single day, because God would have you rather become a soldier that knows how to fight than a person who sits around with a trophy case and gets overwhelmed with the lust of their flesh. You can sit with a trophy case of yesterday's victory and lose the battle tomorrow. You're going to have enemies. And God is the one who deliberately, let's read on, he deliberately kept them so Israel could learn. Look at verse 3. The 5 rulers of the Philistines and all the Canaanites and the Canaanites and the Hivites living in the Lebanon mountains from Mount Baal Hermon to Lebo Hamath. Look at this. Keep going. They were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their ancestors through Moses. Look at it. Hold it. They were left. God left them. He did not let Israel destroy them. He left them so that he could kind of see if their heart was going to be in obedience to him. Come on. You got to realize. Now, you're number one, you're going to have to realize at some point who the real enemy behind all the enemies really is. The Israelites lived among some people. I'm going to talk to you about those for a minute. They lived amongst some Canaanites. And how many of you know that tells us we live right amongst our enemies? They even married them. They lived amongst the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. They took their They took their daughters in marriage and gave their own daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. Go on. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. That was the temple. And the anger of the Lord burned against Israel so that he sold them. Now watch this. And if you read all of chapter 3, you got to read it again if you haven't read it. And I'm going to go back to this. You read it over and over and over. Israel would get victory, forget the Lord, and God had to beat the snot out of them again. Hello? I often wondered why Jews seem to be so short. It may have been because they were just beat down so many times. I'm telling you, if you read that, I mean, they get a victory, and they'd have 8 years of victory. And then all of a sudden, one of the other kings would come in and turn it upside down and serve all the gods of the enemy. And it said the heart of the Lord, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, so that he sold them into the hands of Cushan, the Rishathaim, king of Aram, Naharaim, to whom the Israelites were subject for 8 years. God sold them. Hello? Look, saints, I want to educate somebody here today. Slavery did not start in America. You better hear that, or you'll be prisoner to a lie. And these people, God sold them. That's what your Bible says. God said, I'm going to deal with you knuckleheads. I'm going to sell you to these people. I'm going to tell you a little story about them if you stay with me. I read something to you. I read to you about a group of people. There were 7 of them. The Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Canaanites, all the ites. Have you heard that? How many of you would like to know what they represent? I want to tell you what they mean, what their name means, and how you can identify them as an enemy in your own life. First of all, let me just drop this on you. When history now has been studied with all that new thing that they can do DNA test, and they can find where you come from. I don't have the time to do them all, but just for an instance, the Canaanites came from Lebanon. They're the Lebanese. And they still live right across from Israel. And they still have major terrorist issues. Are you hearing me? Why are they still there? I say it all the time. As an adult, what enemies you don't destroy, you pass it to your children. You leave your children an inheritance of the thing you failed to conquer. What you don't conquer in your own soul, you transfer it to your children, and they can't defeat it. Let's look at Hittites. Hittites means terror. That's what the definition of the word means. It means terror. Now here's what you got to really hear. They were giants who brought fear, confusion, discouragement to many around them. Have you heard that? How do you know they're Hittites? They're giants that are always around you to bring fear, confusion, discouragement around people around you and to you. It's an enemy for us. Can you hear that? How do I know? Proverbs 29:25. Put it on the board. Fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. How do you know the fear of man? See, the Hittites, they were giants. They came from, you got to get this, they came from Goliath. Hello? They're part of the Goliath system. And Goliath actually came from them. They are part of that group. How do you know Goliath got bigger than the Hittites giants were? Because something not addressed gets worse. How about the Jebusites? Means one who returns back from his pilgrimage. One who returns back from a pilgrimage. These are people who go back to their old ways. How about the Amorites? It means people who are arrogant, boastful in their speech, and who always are challenging every system. Proverbs 8:13. They had a high self-esteem and pride that led them to finding fault with everything and everyone. Proverbs 8:13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride, God says, and I hate arrogance, evil behavior, and perverse speech. God said he hates pride. How do you hear that? These people were arrogant. They were proudful.